Today we're going to talk about autoimmune gastritis. In the previous video we talked about H. pylori associated gastritis, and this is the second part of chronic gastritis, that is autoimmune gastritis. So autoimmune gastritis is basically a cause of chronic gastritis in about 10% of the cases, right? About 10% of the cases of chronic gastritis are because of autoimmune gastritis. In autoimmune gastritis, basically there is an autoimmune response against the parietal cells and chief cells, that is against the oxyntic mucosa, the acid producing mucosa of the stomach. So there are basically certain characteristics of autoimmune gastritis. The first is that there is production of autoantibodies against parietal cell components, most commonly the hydrogen, potassium, ATPase pump, and there are autoantibodies against intrinsic factor as well. Alright. Another characteristic of autoimmune gastritis is that there is a decrease in serum pepsinogen concentration. The fourth feature is that there is endocrine cell hyperplasia. Okay. Fifth feature is a deficiency of vitamin B12 because of intrinsic factor deficiency. Okay. And the sixth and last characteristic is defective gastric acid secretion. Defective gastric acid secretion. These are the 6 characteristics of autoimmune gastritis. Next, we are going to talk about its pathogenesis. So, first of all, what we need to understand is that autoimmune gastritis more commonly affects the fundus and the body of the stomach. Now, what is the preferential location of autoimmune gastritis? It is mainly the fundus and the body of the stomach. Okay. Now, basically what happens in this disease is that there is CD4 positive T cell response, T cell immune response, that is produced against the parietal cells, basically. CD4 positive T cell immune response against parietal cells. Now there is destruction of parietal cells. Due to this, there is destruction of parietal cells, right? And there is also concomitant, means taking place simultaneously, concomitant destruction of chief cells as well. Okay, so we know that parietal cells secrete gastric acid and intrinsic factor. So because of the destruction of parietal cells, there is a decrease in the gastric acid and there is a decrease in intrinsic factor. Due to decrease in intrinsic factor, there is deficiency of vitamin B12 because intrinsic factors involved in the absorption of vitamin B12 in the terminal ileum. Okay, now there is also concomitant destruction of chief cells. Chief cells are basically not destroyed because of some special immune attack against chief cells. Rather, they are destroyed because this immune attack is basically against the parietal cells and it is taking place inside the glands. Alright, the gastric glands. These gastric glands, they are consisting of surface epithelium. The surface epithelium basically dips downwards, invaginates, and forms these glands, these gastric glands, and they're containing different types of cells in different zones. They can be parietal cells, chief cells, mucous neck cells, different types of cells. Okay, so whenever there is immune attack against parietal cells, then side by side there can also be destruction of the chief cells. And when there is destruction of chief cells, then there is the reduction in pepsinogen concentration in the serum. Okay, so there are two things which happen. First is destruction of parietal cells, and the second is destruction of chief cells, which is basically due to destruction taking place within the gastric gland. Okay, so there is decrease in gastric acid and there is decrease in intrinsic factor. Whenever there is decrease in gastric acid, this has a number of other effects. We know that hydrogen ions basically are involved in producing a negative feedback on the G cells of the enteral mucosa. Whenever there is a decrease in hydrogen ions, then there is stimulation of G cells. These G cells release gastrin. So there is increased gastrin in autoimmune gastritis, leading to hypergastrinemia. Alright. Now, what is the role of gastrin? Gastrin is basically involved in causing stimulation of the parietal cells to release gastric acid. But since parietal cells are being destroyed, parietal cells are being destroyed in autoimmune gastritis, so the net effect is that although there is hypergastrinemia, there is no increase in parietal cell secretion. Rather, there is endocrine cell hyperplasia and there is hypergastrinemia as well. So there is decrease in hydrogen ions, stimulation of G cells, and there is also a G cell hyperplasia. That is, the G cells not only increase their secretion, rather they also increase their number. There is hypergastrinemia. Now with time, because of destruction of the parietal cells and chief cells, there is a decrease or an atrophy in the oxyntic mucosa. That is the acid producing mucosa. Whenever there is atrophy of the oxyntic mucosa, it leads to a condition known as achlorhydria. In achlorhydria, there is no acid production. This achlorhydria occurs because of diffuse atrophy of the oxyntic mucosa. On the other hand, we studied in H. pylori gastritis that there is, whenever there is H. pylori gastritis of the stomach, fundus or the body, then there is patchy atrophy of the mucosa. This means that there are still some residual patches which are capable of secreting acid. So these patches basically lead to production of acid, and there is not complete absence of acid production. Rather, there is still some acid being produced in H. pylori gastritis, and that is why it is called as hypochlorhydria rather than achlorhydria. So there is a main difference between H. pylori gastritis and autoimmune gastritis, that in H. pylori gastritis there is hypochlorhydria, and in autoimmune gastritis there is complete absence, that is achlorhydria. So you must understand this concept. Okay. So there is one more thing that needs to be understood, that we studied initially in the characteristics of autoimmune gastritis, that there is production of autoantibodies, but it is said that these autoantibodies, basically these autoantibodies have no role in pathogenesis. Alright, they have no role in the pathogenesis of autoimmune gastritis because these autoantibodies are only detectable in the serum. Okay, they are not basically capable of interacting with the hydrogen potassium ATPase pump of the parietal cell or with the intrinsic factor directly, because hydrogen potassium ATPase pump is located on the luminal side of the parietal cells, and these antibodies are located in the serum, so they are not in direct communication with these parietal cell hydrogen potassium ATPase pump. So they are not involved in the pathogenesis. Rather, they are just indicators of the disease. That is, they can be detected in the serum and therefore they can help in the diagnosis of autoimmune gastritis. But as far as the pathogenesis is concerned, in the pathogenesis of autoimmune gastritis, there is only the involvement of CD4 positive T cells, that is T lymphocytes, which destroy the parietal cells and the chief cells and therefore cause the symptoms of this disease. So I guess this is all about the pathogenesis of the disease. If we talk about the symptoms of this condition, then basically we know that there is going to be deficiency of vitamin B12 because of deficiency of intrinsic factors. So there are going to be symptoms related to vitamin B12 deficiency. These include atrophic glossitis, in which the tongue becomes smooth and leafy red. There is going to be megaloblastic anemia, and this is basically pernicious anemia. There is going to be malabsorptive diarrhea, and there is going to be peripheral neuropathy. Okay? Peripheral neuropathy. Apart from peripheral neuropathy, there is also going to be spinal cord lesions, and there are going to be cerebral dysfunctions. These are the symptoms which are related to vitamin B12 deficiency, and the remaining symptoms are due to achlorhydria, which basically develop whenever the disease has progressed for about 2 to 3 decades. Only then the symptoms of achlorhydria develop. And there is also, as I mentioned, there is association with other diseases that are autoimmune in nature, such as Hashimoto thyroiditis and Graves' disease and Lambert-Eaton syndrome, etc. Okay, so these are the clinical features of autoimmune gastritis. Then comes the morphology of autoimmune gastritis. In morphology, we need to understand some concepts. That we know that it is involving the oxyntic mucosa, right? Oxyntic mucosa. So there is involvement of the body and the fundus. Okay. So these parts will be basically undergoing atrophy, right? Atrophy because of parietal cell destruction and chief cell destruction. There is going to be atrophy of the oxyntic mucosa. Whenever there is atrophy of the oxyntic mucosa, this mucosa will be thinned, so it will appear thinner as compared to the rest of the portion of the mucosa, as compared to the antrum or the cardia. And sometimes when there is partial atrophy, that is, it has not atrophied completely, partial atrophy will lead to patches. There will be certain areas which will be normal, and there will be certain areas which can be also which will be atrophied. So there is going to be appearance of nodules or polypoid structures. Why polypoid? Because the areas which are not atrophied will appear raised, and the areas which are thinned will appear flattened. And from flattened, I remember one more thing, that because of the atrophy and the thinning of the mucosa, there is going to be flattening of rugae. Okay, there is going to be flattening of rugae. Apart from this, if we look at the microscopic appearance of this atrophic gastritis, there is going to be inflammatory infiltrate, but there is going to be more like neutrophils are not found in this condition. Really, they are smaller in number as compared to that in H. pylori gastritis. Usually what we find is lymphocytes, plasma cells, and macrophages. And the feature that we studied in H. pylori gastritis, that is the appearance of plasma cells in superficial lamina propria, that was a feature of H. pylori gastritis. That feature is not present in atrophic gastritis. Okay, so I guess this was mainly about morphology. Let me see if there is anything left out in morphology of atrophic gastritis. Yeah, there is, I think that is it. There is also one more thing, that is endocrine cell hyperplasia. It says that you cannot see endocrine cell hyperplasia by H&E stains, right? So one more thing, endocrine cell hyperplasia. Endocrine cell hyperplasia is not visible, right? It's not visible by H&E stains really. So we have to see it by by markers for certain proteins, that is immunostains of proteins, and these include chromogranin A, right? And basically this endocrine cell hyperplasia is because of a physiological response to hypergastриnemia, as we studied earlier. So this is all about the morphology of atrophic gastritis. So we studied the pathophysiology, we studied the morphology, we studied the clinical features of atrophic gastritis. So that is a complete description of the second part of chronic gastritis.